What's up, everyone? Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Niners News here on 49ers Hive. My name is Zach Hernandez, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Matt Llewellyn. And today we're going to be talking about the injury bug biting the 49ers yet again. It was reported that wide receiver Brandon Aiyuk, offensive lineman Ross Reynolds, and defensive lineman D Ford all left with injuries. What do you think of these injuries, and do you think the 49ers are yet again being stung by this injury bug?
Again, it's one of those things where you look at it, and because we follow the team, we see a lot of these injuries, but it seems like a lot of people are getting hurt. And I think that's due to the fact that there were no offseason programs, really, that everybody was relying upon themselves to stay in shape. I know in the case of Brandon Aiyuk, it looked like he pulled up with a hammy, that's something that happens every year. It's a little nicky-knack injury. D Ford's injury is not expected to be super serious either, as far as I've heard. So they'll probably be back. The one serious injury was a guy I've never heard about. So, it sucks for that guy, but I mean, that's just next man up in that situation. It does seem like the 49ers do have an inordinate amount of injuries at all times. We're not even talking about the fact that, Weston Richburg's on the PUP list. He's not going to make it. And then I think it was Ben Garland who was backing him up, had a severe ankle injury that's going to keep him out a couple of weeks. And now they have Daniel Brunskill inside, and they just signed a guy off the street to kind of compete for that center spot. So, those kind of things, they worry you a little bit. Fortunately, the season doesn't start for, another 17, 18 days. So you have about 3 weeks to get everybody under control and, all your positions settled. And hopefully, we can get the injuries under control. But on the plus side, speaking of injuries, we're talking about Trent Taylor looks really good in camp. We're talking about Jerick McKinnon looks really good in camp. We're talking about a shocker. Jason Verrett has apparently looking like his old self. It was reported by somebody that he hit 22.2 miles per hour in practice, according to the little digital thing they have in the shoulder pads. That's really quick, man. I mean, we're talking about Breida led the NFL last year. I think it was 22.8 miles an hour with the ball. So, I mean, you're talking about 0.6 of a mile an hour off of that. I mean, that for somebody who was burnt toast against Pittsburgh Steelers and had years of injury history, him getting back up to speed like that is, kind of excited. So you kind of have to take the good with the bad. Hopefully the players that are injured can come back quickly. I know in the case, again, of that offensive lineman, he's probably never going to play in the NFL. I mean, let's be real. He was an undrafted free agent out of Iowa. I hadn't really heard of him before, his name popped up on the injury report. So, you wish him the best and you hope he can come back. But, we're really more concerned with Brandon Aiyuk, a first rounder, and, of course, D Ford, who, everybody's hoping gets back because he's one of the premier pass rushers in the NFL.
Well, I agree with you. Those are certainly more two important injuries and players for the 49ers. I don't quite diminish the Ross Reynolds injury as much as you do. To be fair, we didn't know who Daniel Brunskill or Justin School were either before they stepped in last season and played relatively well. So just kind of play devil's advocate, Ross Reynolds could have stepped in a COVID year where linemen are, going to be a really, really valued commodity. And he could have played well, especially like you said, you got Weston Richburg is going to start the season on the PUP list. And now Eric Compton's injured with the ankle injury. Who knows? Maybe Ross Reynolds could have been something special for the 49ers, not like all pro offensive lineman, obviously, but he could have been somebody that could have filled in nicely for the time being. And it wouldn't have been such a steep drop off between now and who knows who's going to be playing in his place now that he's injured. They did report that he was very seriously injured. It looked like he had to get carted off the field. All of the out linemen came up and, praised him, helped him up off the field. I was reading a report, I believe by NBC Sports Bay Area, and they were saying, it's never good when the trainer, goes to check him out and sprints as fast as you can to get the cart. So it's something that was serious. And 49ers tackle Mike McGlinchey even said it himself, like he was praising Ross Reynolds for just that he's done everything the team's needed of him. And, it sucks to see somebody like that go down before the season even starts. And no matter who the player is, that statement applies to everybody. But you just think somebody like Big Mike, he's giving this guy praise. So he had to have been somebody who's going to be able to play at least average, playing style. But I do agree. Obviously, Brandon Aiyuk and D Ford are the two prominent names that came up on this injury report. And when I remember I was going into Target and I saw my phone go off with Brandon Aiyuk, and my heart just sank, man. I'm like, not again. We just had this Jalen Hurd injury.
Yeah.
I can't deal with Brandon Aiyuk being injured as well. But then I read that he stayed on the sidelines along with D Ford, and I felt a lot better about it, because if that were something serious like an ACL like Jalen Hurd, I don't think they would be standing on the sidelines for the rest of practice.
Yeah, well, and really, I mean, if it was a really bad hamstring pull, he probably would have gone back immediately to get treatment. So it sounds like it was just something, he felt something that wasn't right and just stopped himself and, pulled himself. That happens. Nick Bosa, he's second-year guy, but he's still getting maintenance days. Everybody's rounding into shape. It's this weird kind of, again, post-COVID, like, what are we doing here sort of, kind of thing going on. And I'll grant you the Reynolds thing on that. I mean, let's be real. What was he really going to do? He was going to back up Brunskill, who's probably going to start at center right off the bat. And then you still have, everybody else is pretty much set where they're going to be. Tackles are taken care of, guards are taken care of. So really, it was that inside, that center. That's So you would have hoped that Reynolds didn't play at all. That Brunskill just holds it down until Richburg comes back off the PUP list, until Garland, his ankle heals up. Those are going to be a couple weeks. But again, like I said, on the bright side, we got a lot of guys coming back from injury that look really good. And then I saw it reported out there that Coach Shanahan says that there's a chance that Deebo Samuel could even be back for week 1. So, it is a give and take. These things are going to happen, especially, again, no off-season programs, no organized team workouts, no preseason games. I mean, I think that the NFL in general is going to have an issue with injuries right off the bat. I know the 49ers are instituting their no live tackling in practice. That's not true around the NFL. There are other teams who are doing live tackling on specific days to try to build up kind of those calluses. But, especially in the case of the 49ers with no live tackling, I would expect a lot of guys, in the first couple of weeks, you're going to see a knick-knack injury here or there, and it's just going to be next man up and do the best you can.
There were a couple other guys, and I do agree with you. That is it's such a strange year. No OTAs, no preseason, shortened training camp. So nothing is really normal, but the 49ers, I do think, are making the best of it. But Matt, there were a couple other injuries I wanted to get your opinion on before we wrap this up here. Ross Dwelly also sat out with, a foot injury. I don't want to necessarily call it an injury. He said that his foot was bothering him. But the biggest one I thought was DJ Jones. It was initially reported that he left with a shoulder injury, and then it was later corrected that he had a concussion. That's correct. Yeah. Does that concern you at all, being somebody that's constantly in the trenches?
No, they're going to take it easy with him anyways. So, this is, again, another... for the time being, it's going to be another redemption year for Solomon Thomas. Apparently, he's like 2 million pounds now, and he's kicking back inside where he says he earned his money in college. Doesn't change the fact that he's been a disappointment so far. So hopefully he can do something, but baby hands don't magically grow. So I'm not expecting a whole lot out of him. But if he can fill the gap while DJ Jones, who is a monster, can heal up and really just, give yourself enough time to fully recover from the concussion. Give yourself a break from, that hitting helmets, anything like that. It'll be better in the long run. And, of course, I bash on Solomon Thomas. It's all love. Like, I really hope he plays well. It's just, again, we've heard it so many times that, you kind of need to see it to believe it. If he can, though, that just adds to the depth of, the deepest unit in the NFL, which is the 49ers defensive line. So who knows how it's going to shake out. But DJ Jones long-term, I don't really see, I haven't heard that he's had a history of concussions. So I don't really see this being a lingering issue unless he tries to come back too fast and then, ends up getting another concussion, which you don't want. You need to take some time off and space that out. So if he can take a couple weeks, kind of, chill out from there, he'll probably do pretty well. As far as Ross Dwelly goes, it is a bit concerning. Again, foot injuries are always this nebulous thing that you just don't know, how long it's going to take to heal. Again, we're talking about, Trent Taylor, who had all these issues. Another big time tight end who's had foot issues his whole career, Greg Olsen. You just never know. You're just like, man, I feel really good today. But then one step and it's just like, oh, well, now I have a Liz Frank injury, or, oh, now I have a Jones fracture. Oh, I have this and this and that. So that really bears watching. And as we'll talk about in a little bit, Jordan Reed isn't practicing and we don't really know why. So Dwelly actually, with the retirement of Selleck and, the departure of some others, Dwelly has a real shot to be an impact player here. So right now the 49ers, I think, are down to 3 healthy tight ends, Kittle, Warner, and I can't remember the last guy. But there's a spot for Dwelly here. If he can, stay healthy, and that foot bears watching.
Going back to Solomon Thomas, I just got to throw in here when he said, "This is where I made my money in college." I was just cracking up. Like, the NCAA is going to start an investigation. How much money are we talking here?
Right.
But
35 cents. No, I mean, I think what he's talking about is, hey, I'm going back to the position that made me the number 3 pick, is essentially what he's saying. Yeah. And I'd love to see it, but who knows? Yeah.
And I mean, reports out of training camp, take them with a grain of salt, but they have been that he's looking like his old self. He's looking like a beast. He's actually finding a home in the middle of the 49ers defensive line. And if that's the case, like you said, this defensive line just got that much better. Now, touching on Ross Dwelly, just real quick before we wrap things up here, the 49ers, maybe they do think it's something serious because they went out and signed former Colts tight end Eric Swoop today, according to Ian Rappaport. So it could be a camp body. It could be something that they're monitoring closely. But, I mean, I guess only time will tell. But I think it's going to do it for us today, guys. Make sure you follow us on Twitter. Our handles are below on the screen. I just want to thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of Niners News here on 49ers Hive. If you like what you see, make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit that like button as well, and drop your comment below. Are you concerned about any of these 49ers injuries?
And go ahead and click the bell for all your notifications. Until next time, go Niners.